Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I have Journey Henkart with us, and I'm really excited to speak with you today. So I'm really curious. If you could first start by sharing a little piece of yourself and what your business is as we dive in.
Absolutely. So, my name is Journey, and I feel like I have been on this long path of self discovery and connection. I started public speaking when I was 12, so over 25 years ago. And whenever I was in front of a room, my favorite thing was not about what I was sharing or the takeaways that people would get from me. It was about the opportunity of creating space for people to connect with each other and really learn from each other's challenges and each other's successes, what is or isn't working, and creating a place for people to just be reminded that they're not alone in what they're going through. So over the years, I have developed a networking with heart, I call it, framework, really, where I help people network in a different way that isn't about exchanging business cards. It's about learning more about who we are, not just what we do. And it's just one of the many things I do. But that's the thing that I'm really passionate about. And in any of the events I do or speaking that I offer, it's always about that connection, and adding that element is so important.
I absolutely love that. And I know you do them in person and online as well. So, meeting other like minded individuals and entrepreneurs has really supported me in my business growth. So, thank you for hosting all the beautiful events that you do. What does success mean to you? It's kind of a big, bold question, but I'm curious.
Yeah, it is a big, bold question. And I think depending on, I feel like I could answer that in so many different ways. I mean, freedom to make choices is such a big one. So having the financial freedom to say, I want to go on a trip, I want to take my family out to dinner, that is a big one. But for me, success is really about relationships. It is having a network of people that I feel like I can lean on, people who are there, to call on, not just for the celebrations, but also through the tricky times, because life is full of that, right? And I traveled so much for a while, and I just felt like I loved it, but I was also really missing that community and that
Mm.
deep, authentic connection that wasn't only online, because that is possible, but having those real in-person connections. So for me right now in my life, it is authentic connections. It's also health. Yeah, and just having the freedom to live life with a lot of fun with my family and my friends.
Yay. Okay, I'm celebrating that. Absolutely. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur? Like, what was the thing that you were just like, okay, this is what I'm doing? And if you could share that with our audience today.
Yeah, the answer is twofold: mom and dad. My parents have always been entrepreneurs. They've always worked for themselves, and they've always encouraged me to find my passion and turn it into a business. And it's funny because after college, it was about 2 years after college, and I decided to get an actual corporate 9 to 5 job. And I was so worried about telling my parents. I called them, and it was like this confession. I said, "Okay, mom, dad, are you both on the phone?" I was like, "I have something to tell you. I hope you're not mad. I'm getting a corporate job." And, usually it's the other way around. People are like, "I'm quitting my job and I'm going to try my," and I was like, and they're like, "That's okay, honey. We still love you. We'll support you, whatever you do." And so it's funny because my parents are so opposite in that sense. But yeah, I've always been around not just my parents, but my family, friends, and mentors who were able to be entrepreneurs and make their own hours. And I feel grateful for that because that's always been my norm. Yeah. And so it's always just been finding a way to do it so that I really can truly create my own terms, because as many of us know, just because we're an entrepreneur doesn't mean that we get to make our own hours. Sometimes we end up working more hours if we're not careful and cautious and set that up from the beginning. So I've been learning a lot over the years about that too.
Yay. Well, celebrating your mom and dad's entrepreneurial mindset, because I know now day and age, I mean, my daughter's turning 13 and they're just starting to bring in those conversations into school. And it's like, could you imagine, like your son and future children, like going through opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship through regular systems is just like, oh. Mind blowing. Okay, let's talk about values and beliefs. So values and beliefs really guide us in every single day, but how can you connect those and share with us what values and beliefs have guided you in your business decisions?
Ooh, that's a good one. Values and beliefs. I would say the value of meaningful relationships has guided me through everything. Whether I say yes to something or no to something, always has to do with what difference is this making? Who am I connecting with? It's community. Community is one of my yeah, big values, and family. Family and freedom are two of my other big values that um, you know, always family first, making sure that everyone is growing from something, which doesn't mean that I don't do something. Sometimes me saying yes to something for my own happiness allows me to make a decision for me that then I feel like I'm a better mother and better wife because of that, right? Yeah, and one of my beliefs is freedom, being able to, have the freedom to, yeah, like I said in the beginning, go places, have fun as a family, as a community. So, yeah, I guess community, and not in that order, but family, community, freedom, has been the forefront of a lot of my decisions, where it's about elevating everything and choosing. I mean, again, as an entrepreneur, I like to choose my own hours, make my own schedule, and be able to travel when I want, not have to ask for time off, which isn't anything bad about corporate. I know for some people, they love the 9 to 5, they love the structure. I think there are certain jobs where if I knew about it back then, I would have been all for it, because there are some corporate businesses that have community involved in that. But I think yeah, I love my time freedom.
Yes, I hear freedom loud and clear. So let's talk about freedom for a second. This might kind of tie into my next question about what has been the most rewarding part of your journey.
Ah.
Do you want to
Oh,
add a little bit more to that?
the most rewarding in what area?
Just in general. So, in part of your entrepreneurship journey, I mean, you've talked a lot about freedom, you've talked a lot about making your own schedule, but is there anything else you could add into that? I know family for you is absolutely at the forefront, but if you could pinpoint maybe just a rewarding, is there any story you want to share or anything like that?
Well, on the path of, I guess, travel, my husband and I took almost 2 years of just an open destination travel adventure. We sold everything, got rid of everything, got a travel trailer. This was before RV life was even really a thing. This was in 2016. And we just left with no plan of where we were going to go or how long we were going to last. I even said, if I don't make it past 3 months, please don't be mad. And we would just put on Facebook, okay, we're headed this direction, if anyone knows anyone. And we weren't being tourists. We were just looking for enriching experiences and people. And the direction that it took us was just random and amazing, but where it led has absolutely, for both of us, led us to living out our passions and our dreams even more. And I'm just, yeah, it was very rewarding in terms of the people, the relationships, the direction. We were through the US and Canada mostly, but then we did 3 months. We were in Europe for 3 months. And because of that, I got certified in the breath work that I'm certified in now. Because of that, my husband is working and volunteering for a huge Burning Man project that brings transformational experiences to people. And so, yeah, it was very, very rewarding in so many ways. And randomly, it started that, like, a lot of what that led to was a random connection in Toulon, Manitoba. So you never know where or when you'll meet someone who then, and this does tie into my networking with Heart, because you never know when or who you'll meet that could lead you to something else, that leads you to someone else, that then brings you to something that you've always dreamed of.
That's so beautiful. I call that the little breadcrumbs, right? It's like you follow one thing, you find another. And I'm curious because I know you have a book.
I
I'm
do.
curious if you're ever going to write maybe something along the lines of the freedom journey. And maybe somebody like myself could follow along on some of these journeys that you have been saying yes to.
Ooh, oh, I like that idea.
I just came to me. I was like, download, I need to share that one. But really, inspired to hear how you were able to just let go and let go of everything to explore, and the possibilities and those breadcrumbs that really came to you during that time is like the evolution of the adventure in your own business. So I am celebrating that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Let's talk about some unique challenges that you might have encountered as an entrepreneur, if you're open to sharing that.
Oh, I think it's so important to share that because that's the real stuff. And when I was starting as an entrepreneur, people weren't talking about that. And so, in a way, I was a bit jaded, if you will, thinking that, oh, if I turn, I remember actually having a conversation with my dad. I think I was too old for this conversation. I wish I would have had that earlier, but I was probably 21. And I remember talking to him about, I was living on my own and having to get an actual job to pay the bills because my passion wasn't paying. And I forgot how it went exactly, but he's like, yeah, sometimes you just have to get a job and, if until you figure out how to bring money in. And I was like, but Dad, you always taught me to just do what I love to do. He's like, yeah, but you got to make money for it. Or, you got to bring in money too. And so I was like, oh, okay, I can't just do what I want to do and just have fun doing it. So, the learning curve of making sure it makes money. And I think that's something that even now I hear a lot in the coaching world or this and that, of people having a 5-figure month or a 6-figure month, 100K launch. And what isn't talked about enough are the expenses that go into it. So
Mhm.
someone might have a 100K launch, but only bring in $5,000 into their pocket. It's like, okay, well, that's not the dream. That's $5,000 for a lot of time and a lot of money. So finding the right path of like, okay, what is it okay, back to the question for me, I've had to go through a lot of pivots to figure out what I want to do and making sure that it's that it makes sense as an ROI. So I'm not spending more time and money than I'm gaining, right? So that has been definitely gone through challenges of that. And then I definitely for a long time went through a big challenge of feeling isolated,
Mm.
working for myself, by myself, and being really bored with it. Mastering the mundane wasn't just about having to do the emails. It was that everything was on my own and everything I was doing was phone calls. And although it was making huge differences for people and the testimonials and how I was making a difference, it warmed my heart and that felt good, but I really missed that connection with people.
Mhm.
So now these phases, making sure that everything I do also includes connection, which is probably a huge reason why I love what I do, bringing people together, because that's what I craved for so long.
Yeah. And what you're saying resonates 100% with me. And I think it's important for our listeners here too, is recognizing what you said in that first part about pivoting and like, don't get too attached to the outcome where it could change, right? Like I know I'm working with some clients and they're like, what do I call myself? I'm like, well, it might change next month as you kind of work with exactly what's formulating and the energy around you and coming back to your North Star, like you talked about earlier, the community, the connection, the freedom. It's now those values and beliefs are embedded in your foundation of your business. So no matter what you're doing, you come back and you're like, wait a second, does that align with my values and beliefs? Yes, it does. Okay, I'll look at it. But if not, take what you need and leave the rest.
Mhm.
Tell me like some of the most potent, maybe strengths that you require or you found most helpful in your business. As I pull out my hair, I got all excited. I'm like, let's talk about some strengths.
Strengths, I would say, not giving up is a huge.
Beautiful.
I don't know if that's a strength, but I guess perseverance is a
Yeah.
strength, which I haven't always had consistently. I'll go through waves and dips, I think like humans do. But in terms of being consistent and being effective in building a business. It is having that determination. And the only reason I've been able to stay consistent and have that determination with what I'm doing now is because I love it so much. Because I've done things in the past where I was an entrepreneur and I loved certain aspects of it, but I wasn't attached fully. And so it was really easy for me to drop the ball and yeah, and maybe not follow through on certain things. Whereas now I'm so motivated to do what I do because I love it. I love the effect. I love I love the results that other people get, and that, I'm words of I'm words of affirmation. So hearing the feedback always fuels my soul. So yeah, I would say one of the strengths is that dedication, determination. What's another one? I would say for me in the work I do, it is being social as a strength, that I'm fueled by conversations and connections. Not to say I don't need a break. Like my husband is he's very extroverted and outgoing, and he gets more fueled by more connections, whereas I do, but then I also retreat and need some alone time to, yeah. So having that balance, which I guess what I'll say is a third strength, which is knowing myself, really knowing myself, what I need to be successful, to stay successful in my own definition of what success is, but knowing myself so that I can set myself up for success, to be able to serve for the community, but also knowing how to fill my own cup and what I need and how much space I need. And so that's been a trial and error process over the years, where I get burnt out and then I realize what's too much and then I scale back. And sometimes that just works for me too, is kind of like pushing hard and then taking a break and, ebbing and flowing, but really listening to myself before that total burnout. So I think that's something as entrepreneurs, we really can encourage each other to do more, which is listening to ourselves and really honoring what we need to keep that candle burning.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And it's really important too, as you're mentioning, tuning into yourself, is really getting clear on what you want.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in order to like see that, and what we're saying, I'm getting a whole bunch of thoughts, because for me, it's really interesting. I need to know what I don't want to get really clear on what I do want. So that discovery part of not getting too attached to it, and maybe trying something and going, you know what, actually, I don't want to feel like that, or I don't want that in my business, but seeing the contrast on how we learn and we grow. Can you hear that noise?
Nope.
Okay, someone's banging around back there. That's okay.
Mhm.
So can we talk about the evolution of your business, or, if you are your business, right? Like if you can talk about the evolution since you started and what that kind of looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started when I was 12 and I was giving workshops with my mom. She was already giving parenting seminars and came home one day and said, hey, I'd love to hear from your perspective. What are 10 things, if you had to come up with any 10 reasons why you and I communicate differently than your friends and their parents? And so I wrote out a whole list and I was telling her what I thought. And she said, you know what? I think this would be really great if you came and shared this from your perspective. So I was so nervous. I think there were probably 10 people in the audience that day. And I had my whole speech written out word for word, every and it, the shaking, and I was reading. But after, the parents came up to me and asked advice. They just wanted to know what I thought about if they did certain things with their kids. And I was so empowered and so excited and hooked for life. And so my mom and I started speaking on more stages, bigger audiences, and people started asking what they could take home with them. So we created a pamphlet, which became the book. And then we went on this media tour with all sorts of TV and radio shows. And that's when we were on Oprah. Our book was published in Dutch. So we were flown to the Netherlands, and it was just such an incredible experience. But then I wanted to be normal through college. So I did normal jobs and then came back into that service. And so I was speaking sporadically and doing different workshops, but it was actually 2018 in Vancouver when people were craving, it was January, so right after New Year's, and people were craving a way to connect that wasn't about drinking, wasn't at the bar, and was about more deeper conversations. And I said, I know how to do that. So we just gathered 10 girlfriends, went to a friend's, and I created this little workshop style where everyone was learning from each other, having quick moments, like a minute or two to share something. And everyone loved how much they learned about each other in a short amount of time. So I started doing them twice a month. And every time I'd have feedback forms, what they liked, what they didn't, what they wanted more or less of. And it grew and grew and grew from that, from everyone else literally telling me what they liked and what they wanted different. And so it was curated almost as a community in that sense. And so it was for about 1.5 years. And then when I came to Kelowna, my husband was like, you know what, why don't you, because I started doing, selling tickets and getting hired by staff and corporate businesses to do it for their staff as like a team bonding. When I came to Kelowna, he suggested, he's like, it's a great way to get to know people and just create that community culture from scratch. And so that's what I did. And it was such a beautiful way to get to know people here. And again, that grew and grew. And then again, corporate companies wanted me to do that for their staff. And then, I've been able to do it as like actual networking events. So sometimes it's more business focused. Sometimes it's more just about connections and nothing about business. Depends on the audience. But it has really grown into something different and unique where people just really appreciate a different way to get to know people more authentically. And so we cut out the elevator speeches, and it's just getting to know each other in a different way, but still seeing each other for who we are.
And it's fun. I mean,
It's so fun.
You've got your mythology. It's called the popcorn deep dive.
Popcorn deep dives.
Yeah. Where'd that come from?
One of my friends during the experience, everyone was sharing what they loved about it or what their experience was. And she said, it's like popcorn deep dives because we move around quick like popcorn, but we go deep and we dive in deep fast. And so, popcorn deep dives, it really does explain it. And it's something that I feel like I integrated in a lot of different things, whether it's just about the networking with heart, or even in my breathwork events, or even in, I'll be asked to speak on a leadership stage. I always am able to integrate it a little bit because I feel everyone wants that authentic connection with people. Everyone is looking for more ways to connect with who they're around, not just selling themselves, but we're just in this mind frame of like a networking event is, here's my business, this is what I do, and it's more transactional. Whereas what people are really wanting is more, a better chance to really get to know each other and find things in common. And that's something else I found. In every room, people can always find something in common with each other when they're given a chance. And so when we can do these popcorn deep dives and learn a lot about each other, then people are like, oh, I lived there too. Or I traveled there, or I'm from there. And then they find all these different, deeper layers, ways to connect that then tie people together beyond just, oh, I like what you do. That sounds interesting. It's like, oh, now I know something that we can now connect on and talk more about at a different time. So the friendships that have been made, sometimes the dating that has happened, it's like so much.
Well, it's beautiful because I know that being a part of some of your events, it's the like, know, and trust factor. So now I like, know, and trust these people on a whole different level, and I'm more likely going to hire them or work with them or collaborate or vice versa, because you have this relationship on a different level than just, I feel like regular networking events is kind of like speed, like it's like, hi, there's no real connection. You're like, hello, what's going on? Yours is like this, it's like, I want to say speed dating, but I don't want to like give it that kind of, because you really have a short period of time and everybody's got the same amount of time. So you don't have to feel like you're the only one, like, oh, okay, I have a minute to tell you my entire life. Right? I'm like, Journey, what are you doing to me? But it's really cool to see also my awareness of what types of stories am I telling, right? And vice versa. Like, cause I've come when I've been in different stages in my business as well. There's some stages where I was like, I'm going through a big shift and I don't even know what to talk about. And you're like, just come. And
Yeah.
just coming and being in other people's energy, I started to gain more clarity as to the energy that I was stepping into my business just by picking up, like we talked about before, those little seeds, those
Yeah.
little seeds. So thank you for hosting
Oh,
those.
I love that. Well, and that's sometimes the beauty of it is when you have a timer and a question, then sometimes we're surprised by our own response that then can we get out of our head and more into our hearts. And then sometimes we learn from our own shares. Sometimes we hear from other people share something that we can resonate with and then helps us see something differently. So yeah, I'm so glad to hear that.
That's beautiful. So let's talk big vision. If you can tap into your bigger vision, what would you identify for the future of your business?
Ooh. That's a great question. I think more of the same. If I were to really build something, I think it would be bigger online community where
Mhm.
people could connect and have those touch points without having to get childcare and get dressed up, even though I love and a good chance to get dressed up and put on some heels and go be with friends. But also as a busy parent, sometimes it's nice to have that. And I know people really loved that when I was doing it regularly. So I played with that idea of, creating that online more as a regular thing, not just a sporadic thing. But I don't know, big vision for me, just with the way things are right now, is more people connecting and I love when I hear that someone is doing business with someone that they met at one of my events and that like those little touch points, those little ripples. I was texting with someone the other day and she said, I just got flowers sent to me by someone,
Aw,
a client I met at your event. And I just warmed my heart. So,
that's
just
amazing.
knowing that there's that ripple effect, that something I'm doing is making a positive difference in someone else's life. Honestly, that just makes my heart sing.
Oh, I can feel it. That feels so, so good. If you could give some advice to aspiring soul-led entrepreneurs, and you could tie it up into like a couple sentences, no pressure, what would that be?
Oh, okay. I would say make sure you pay yourself. Make sure that you have something set up where you are paying yourself. And if there is some debt that's being put to, invest in your business, that there is a plan to get out of it. I've seen too many people have to fold their business and do something else because they were getting all the things that people said they had to buy and weren't paying themselves and then couldn't. So make sure you're paying yourself. Make sure you have that vision for when you pay yourself if it's not happening right away. I feel like everyone deserves to get paid.
Yes.
Um, and gosh, hold that vision strong. When you find what it is that you love to do that makes your heart sing, have more conversations about it. Invite, your friends or your mentors to brainstorm around it and find ways to make it profitable and successful. And I feel like right now, especially in this in the world right now, people are so focused on personal growth and helping celebrate each other. I mean, I know that's my world. I hope that's everyone's world, that everyone's celebrating each other. That I feel like if you ask people for help, they will share, finding people who are further ahead from where you are and asking, how did you get there? What do I need to do to get there? Just ask questions. And I feel like ask enough questions, people will say yes, and people will do want to help. So um, yeah, keeping your vision alive though, and taking care of you along the way.
Woo. That is so potent. There's such power in the ask for sure. Like even coming into community, asking for you to come on and speak to our awesome listeners here today. Journey, I want to thank you. I know you've put together, well, you have your freebie. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that before we wrap up today. So it's the Networking with Heart workbook. Sounds fantastic. So all of our listeners today, you will see comments below regarding this conversation with the freebie. To get yours, there's a little link that you can click on. But Journey, what is this Networking with the Heart workbook all about?
Yeah, it is timeless because it's something that allows you as an entrepreneur to actually, it ties into our conversation really well because it talks about the your values, your core values to help you decide what your decisions are going to be. So it is funny that you asked me that, but it is such an important fundamental of not only what you want to do, but who you want to attract in your life. And I am such a big believer in attracting the, like-minded people who are also focused on similar things, but maybe even ahead of you in that way, so that you're elevated and inspired to keep on pushing forward, right? So the values helps kind of write out those things that are important to you, to also call that more into your community. And then there's a few questions about also people who you want to reach out to, because sometimes with networking we think, okay, who do I want in my business? Who would be a good client for me or a good mentor for me? But I really believe in serving first. When we are truly networking with heart, instead of looking at who can help me, it's who can I help? Who can I connect? Who can I serve? Who can I offer value to? And then what happens is it all comes back to you tenfold. I believe that so strongly. It might not happen right away, but a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, that ripple effect comes back. And so one of the things I have is just, who you could reach out to pour love into, to connect with, not knowing, not having any expectation. But when we train our minds to think that way, when we train our minds to wake up in the morning and think, who can I help today? Or who could I reach out to? Or who could I pour love into right now? We never know who might need it. I got a text, I don't know, maybe it was a month ago, and someone just randomly sent me love. And it was just no expectation of anything. It was just, hey, I just was thinking about you and wanted to share how big of an impact, blah, blah, blah. And I was having such a crappy day that day, one of those hair pulling, everything falling apart moments. And getting that text made me cry in gratitude and remind me that I am connected to great people and I am making a difference. And so the more we can do that and train our minds to think that way always, the networking happens so naturally. The connections are made, and we never know, again, what we talked about in the beginning, what might lead to something else. So those are just 2 little things that I feel really passionate about, but there's a couple pages with other goodies too. So yeah, dive in, fill it out. Let me know what you think. I'd love feedback.
Woohoo! That is fantastic. Journey, it has been a pleasure connecting with you and learning more about behind the scenes, what it's been like for you as an entrepreneur. So thank you for coming on and speaking with our listeners today. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.